People think quiet jobs are easy, but they've never worked the graveyard shift in a dead industrial yard. 12 hours of silence isn't peaceful. It's loud in a different way, especially over the holidays. No trains running, no workers showing up late, no calls from the dispatch office. Just 4 straight nights of nothing. I've been posted here almost 5 years. Cargo rail storage yard, mostly old flatbeds and sealed containers. They say it'll be sold off to some biotech firm eventually. But until then, it just sits here, fenced off and forgotten. There's only one job. Keep out what doesn't belong. No one ever tries to come in. The perimeter fence is 2 meters high with angled spikes. Security cameras only point outward. Cheap design. Deliberate, though. The company didn't want footage of whatever's rotting inside those crates. I have a small heated guard shack near the south gate. Coffee. A cot. My logbook. Every hour I walk the fence. Top to bottom. East to west. Then sit. Then wait. Then repeat. That first night I didn't expect anything different. I clocked in at 1956, signed the book, turned on the radio, mostly static, and walked my first loop. It was during the second patrol that I saw her. A car, parked just beyond the northern fence line, tucked up against the gravel shoulder. And inside the car, a girl, 10, maybe 12 years old, sitting in the passenger seat. Still, not on a phone, not sleeping, just sitting. She didn't look at me, just stared ahead, out the windshield, like she was waiting for someone. She didn't look cold, didn't seem scared either. That's what struck me most, her calmness. Like sitting alone on the side of an empty rail yard in winter was something perfectly normal. I hesitated. My flashlight swept across her car. Old Honda, paint peeling, mismatched rear wheel. It wasn't running. No lights, no visible plates. I raised a hand, unsure what gesture to even use. She didn't react. I spoke, loud enough to carry through the fence. "Hey there, you okay?" Still nothing. Not a twitch. She just sat, hands in her lap, chin slightly tilted down. I waited a moment, then took a few steps closer. "Where are your parents?" This time she moved, just her head, turning toward me, slow and deliberate. Her eyes met mine, pale blue, washed out by the moonlight. She didn't answer, but I felt something, like static in the air, that hair-raising kind you feel before a storm. I stepped back. "All right, I'll be walking by again soon. If you need help, just wave me down." Yeah, nothing. I returned to the shack, marked the time in the log, 22:47, possible civilian near north perimeter. No approach, non-threatening. I debated calling it in, but who would I call? It wasn't illegal to park there, and she wasn't doing anything wrong. Still, something about her gnawed at me. The next patrol, 2 hours later, she was still there. Same position, same stillness, like a statue. I crouched by the fence this time. "You waiting for someone?" Her head turned again. Same slow-motion movement. "My mom," she said. Her voice was faint, dusty almost. Not tired, just used up. Cleared my throat. "She inside the building somewhere?" She shook her head once. "She'll be back. She just needed to go find something." It was such a strange sentence. Too vague to comfort. Too practiced to be improvised. I nodded, mostly to keep the quiet from stretching. "You cold?" She shook her head again. "She locked the car from the outside," she said, "so no one could get in." I stared at her. That sentence, that detail, it pulled something sharp and old from my memory. My ex used to say things like that. We split 10 years ago. She took our baby girl and vanished. No goodbye. No custody dispute. No word. I filed reports. Posted flyers. Talked to detectives, psychics, talk show producers. Nothing. Police called it a voluntary disappearance. That girl sitting outside the fence. She looked like what my daughter might look like now. It was impossible, obviously, but my brain still pulled at the thread. She looked like her. That night, I barely slept during my break. Kept replaying her voice in my head. The tone. The wording. She just needed to go find something. When I closed my eyes, I saw my daughter's face. Not the baby version I remembered, but grown, constructed from nothing but imagination and the soft bones of hope. I didn't write anything else in the log, but I already knew I'd bring food with me the next night, just in case. I packed 2 sandwiches before leaving home. Peanut butter and jelly, the only thing I remembered my daughter eating without a fight. Tossed in an apple and a carton of juice. Felt stupid doing it, like I was preparing lunch for a ghost. Still, I placed them carefully in a paper bag and drove to the yard like nothing had changed. The radio crackled when I checked in. No new notices. Still 4 days of silence on the books. By 2100 hours, I was out walking. North fence. The car was still there. Moved a little, maybe it looked slightly farther from the fence. Or maybe I was just seeing things. She sat in the same seat, arms crossed, coat zipped all the way to her chin. Same expression. Not scared, not curious, just watching. When she noticed me, she didn't flinch. I walked up slowly and crouched again, holding the paper bag through the chain link. Brought something, I said. Figured you might be hungry. She blinked. No reaction. Just a sandwich.
PBJ.
Not poisoned, I promise. After a pause, she reached under the fence and took it. Still no smile, but something in her shoulders relaxed. Just a bit. She sat back down and opened the bag. Didn't speak for almost 5 minutes. I just stood there like an idiot, pretending not to watch her eat. You came back, she said finally. Yeah, I answered. She chewed quietly for a moment, then added, some people don't. That hit harder than I expected. I leaned against the cold steel, the gravel crunching under my boots. How long you two been out here? I asked gently. She shrugged. She drives all night, sleeps in the day. She says it's safer that way. Who? My mom, she answered. She's always careful. I frowned. You got any other family? Somewhere you could go? She didn't look at me. She said not to talk to people too much. Said they'd find us again if I did. That cold knot in my gut twisted a little tighter. This wasn't just some scared runaway. This wasn't just poverty. This was something else. Something broken. And I still hadn't asked the one question burning in my chest. What's your name? I asked. She hesitated, then looked straight at me. I don't remember, she said. I didn't press her. Just watched the trees shift in the wind. Every instinct screamed that this girl needed help. But help meant paperwork, involvement, the system, and part of me was afraid if I broke the moment, if I called anyone, she'd vanish again, like before. I shifted my weight, brushing the frost off my jacket sleeve. You warm enough in there? I asked. She looked down at her lap. It's okay. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a pair of thin gloves I kept in the shack for cold nights. Pushed them through the gap at the base of the fence. She hesitated again, then took them. My mom says kindness is usually a trap, she said. That people only give you things when they want something back. I swallowed. That true for you? She paused. I don't know yet. We sat in silence a while. The kind of silence that feels like waiting for something to break. When I finally stood up, she surprised me by speaking again. Will you come back tomorrow? Yeah, I said. Same time. She nodded once, then turned her face back toward the windshield, like I was already gone. I walked the rest of the patrol slower than usual. My boots felt heavier, my breath louder. Every warehouse shadow looked like a shape I might have missed before. Back at the shack, I didn't write anything in the logbook. Just sat staring at the reflection of the yard lights on the window, trying to remember what my daughter's voice had sounded like. I hadn't heard it since she was 1, but tonight it had felt close. Too close. Brushing the frost off my jacket sleeve. You warm enough in there? I asked. She looked down at her lap. It's okay. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a pair of thin gloves I kept in the shack for cold nights. Pushed them through the gap at the base of the fence. She hesitated again, then took them. My mom says kindness is usually a trap, she said. That people only give you things when they want something back. I swallowed. That true for you? She paused. I don't know yet. We sat in silence a while. The kind of silence that feels like waiting for something to break. When I finally stood up, she surprised me by speaking again. Will you come back tomorrow? Yeah, I said. Same time. She nodded once, then turned her face back toward the windshield, like I was already gone. I walked the rest of the patrol slower than usual. My boots felt heavier, my breath louder. Every warehouse shadow looked like a shape I might have missed before. Back at the shack, I didn't write anything in the logbook. Just sat staring at the reflection of the yard lights on the window, trying to remember what my daughter's voice had sounded like. I hadn't heard it since she was 1, but tonight it had felt close. Too close. You came back, she said finally. Yeah, I answered. She chewed quietly for a moment, then added, some people don't. That hit harder than I expected. I leaned against the cold steel, the gravel crunching under my boots. How long you two been out here? I asked gently. She shrugged. She drives all night, sleeps in the day. She says it's safer that way. Who? My mom, she answered. She's always careful. I frowned. You got any other family? Somewhere you could go? She didn't look at me. She said not to talk to people too much. Said they'd find us again if I did. That cold knot in my gut twisted a little tighter. This wasn't just some scared runaway. This wasn't just poverty. This was something else. Something broken. And I still hadn't asked the one question burning in my chest. What's your name? I asked. She hesitated, then looked straight at me. I don't remember, she said. I didn't press her. Just watched the trees shift in the wind. Every instinct screamed that this girl needed help. But help meant paperwork, involvement, the system, and part of me was afraid if I broke the moment, if I called anyone, she'd vanish again, like before. I shifted my weight, brushing the frost off my jacket sleeve. You warm enough in there? I asked. She looked down at her lap. It's okay. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a pair of thin gloves I kept in the shack for cold nights. Pushed them through the gap at the base of the fence. She hesitated again, then took them. My mom says kindness is usually a trap, she said. That people only give you things when they want something back. I swallowed. That true for you? She paused. I don't know yet. We sat in silence a while. The kind of silence that feels like waiting for something to break. When I finally stood up, she surprised me by speaking again. Will you come back tomorrow? Yeah, I said. Same time. She nodded once, then turned her face back toward the windshield, like I was already gone. I walked the rest of the patrol slower than usual. My boots felt heavier, my breath louder. Every warehouse shadow looked like a shape I might have missed before. Back at the shack, I didn't write anything in the logbook. Just sat staring at the reflection of the yard lights on the window, trying to remember what my daughter's voice had sounded like. I hadn't heard it since she was 1, but tonight it had felt close. Too close. The third night, I left early. Didn't even pretend I wasn't excited. I made a thermos of cocoa, packed a small blanket, brought more food, better this time. Real food, something warm. It felt like prepping for a visit with someone important. I told myself it was just about helping her, making sure she was okay. But the truth? I wanted her to be my daughter, and I hated myself for that. I reached the yard just past 7. Walked straight to the north perimeter before even checking in. And for a moment, panic. The car was gone.
No headlights. No silhouette.
No sign of her. But then I spotted it. Farther up the road, maybe 50 meters. Just tucked behind the remains of an old loading ramp. Almost like it was hiding. I walked fast, too fast. My legs didn't listen to my pacing instinct. When I reached the stretch of fence across from it, I saw her. Still in the passenger seat. Still staring forward. But this time, her head turned before I said anything. And she smiled. Only a little. Barely more than a twitch of the lips. But it was there. You came early, she said. Didn't want to miss you. She opened the door this time and stepped out, standing beside the car. Up close now, I could see more. She had a faint scar above her left eyebrow. Her coat was 2 sizes too big. Her hair looked freshly brushed, but damp at the ends. I crouched again, fingers wrapped in the chain link. "Thought you'd moved on," I said. She looked down. "We were going to, but the car battery died earlier. Mom said we'll try to leave tomorrow." I nodded slowly, not trusting my voice. Then she added, "She didn't want me talking to you. She's scared of men." "Did she hurt you?" I asked gently. "No," she said, "but she's not stable. She forgets what's real." Her voice was calm, matter of fact. "She says they're watching her. From phones, from streetlights, even from birds sometimes." I felt the hairs on my neck rise. That was exactly the kind of talk my ex-wife used to spiral into. Right before she vanished, my fingers tightened on the fence. "What's your mom's name?" I asked, careful, even tone. She hesitated, looked down at her shoes, then answered, "Camilla." The world stopped. My breath caught halfway up my throat. Camilla, not a common name, not an easy one to guess. I stared at her for a full 10 seconds, and she didn't blink. "What's your name?" I asked again. She looked at me and said nothing, but she didn't say no, didn't say wrong person, didn't laugh, didn't ask why, just held my eyes and smiled just a little more. I couldn't move. The cold was biting through my gloves, but I didn't feel it. My brain was splitting down the middle, half clinging to reality, the other half tumbling into something deeper, older, more dangerous. She stood there like she'd never been gone, like it hadn't been 10 years, like this wasn't impossible. "I used to live in a blue house," she said softly, "with a swing, the kind with the rubber seat that makes your legs feel tingly when you jump." I nodded slowly. "That was yours. We tied it to the oak in the backyard." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "There were 3 steps up to the back door. One of them was cracked, but you said it wasn't dangerous unless I ran." I felt a tremor in my chest. Memory opened like a trapdoor. "And you always ran," I said. She smiled again, this time wide enough to show teeth. "I only fell once. I carried you inside," I whispered. "You scraped your chin. You wouldn't stop crying." She nodded. "Then you made a joke about the step being hungry." We both stood in silence. Wind slipped through the fence like a secret. That wasn't a story anyone else would know. It wasn't in the report, wasn't online, wasn't something even I had thought about in a decade. I leaned my head against the cold metal. "You're real," I said. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Later that night, I sat in the shack with the light off, just staring into space. Every part of me wanted to scream, to run, to call someone, anyone, but I didn't, because the thing that had haunted me for a decade wasn't a ghost. She was outside the fence, breathing, alive, and something deep inside me whispered that if I moved too fast, said too much, I'd lose her again, and I couldn't survive that twice. The next day, I tore through the bottom drawer of the fireproof box in my bedroom. It had been years since I opened it. Dusty manila folders, faded receipts, divorce papers, police reports, everything I couldn't throw out, but couldn't bear to look at either. And then, at the very bottom, a folded piece of pink paper, a child's drawing, stick figures with giant eyes, one tall, one small, both holding hands beside a house that looked like it had legs. The letters were uneven, backward in places. Me plus Dad, our fort. It had been on our fridge the week before they vanished. I placed it carefully in a plastic folder, tucked it under my jacket, and headed to work an hour early. The car was already there when I arrived. This time parked in the exact same spot as the night before. Not moved, not idling. She stood outside it, hands in her pockets, watching me approach like she'd been waiting. "I brought something," I said. Her eyes dropped to my hands. I crouched, slipped the folder through the fence. She took it slowly, opened it, stared for a long time. "I remember this," she said finally. "I hoped you would." She looked up, and something changed in her face. "I drew it on your birthday," she said. I didn't remember that part, but I nodded like I did. Her voice dropped. She told me you died. The air left my lungs. She told me they were coming for us, and you'd been taken first. I pressed my hand to the fence. She didn't touch it, but she stood close. She gets better sometimes, the girl continued. Then worse again. She talks to people that aren't there. We move around a lot. Have you gone to school? I asked. She shrugged. Sometimes. Not real ones. Libraries mostly. Internet cafes. And now. She said we have to leave soon, before they follow us here. Who does she think is following? Her lips pressed together. Then she mouthed the word, them, like it explained everything. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, slowly held it up. Let me make a call, I said. Just one. You don't even have to come in. I'll talk. You can wait here. She shook her head fast, backed away. She said if I talk to anyone too long, they'll trace us. It's not true, I said. That's the sickness. That's not real. She didn't respond. I swallowed hard. Then let me come with you. If she's really leaving, I can help. You don't have to go alone anymore. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away fast. She wouldn't let you. She doesn't trust anyone. She thinks the fences are watching. The silence after that lasted minutes. I'll be here, I said. Tomorrow night. She nodded once, then turned and got into the car. Didn't look back. I stood at the fence long after the headlights disappeared. This time I logged it. 2219, civilian at North Perimeter. Possible match. Personal. No one else would ever read that book. But writing it made it real. Tomorrow would be the last night of the shift. And I knew, if she wasn't there, something inside me wouldn't survive. I didn't sleep that day. Every sound outside my window felt like tires on gravel. Every minute stretched and bent around the edges. By 1700 hours I was dressed and pacing. I didn't even pretend to eat. When I arrived at the yard, the sun had just dropped. A sliver of red on the horizon. Shadows pooling in every corner. I didn't clock in. Didn't unlock the shack. I walked straight toward the north fence with my breath in my throat. She wasn't there. The road was empty. No car.
No silhouette.
No sign. I felt it first in my knees, the hollow sensation, like something inside me slipping loose. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. Then I started walking the perimeter, faster this time. Each corner felt sharper. Every fence pole like a clock hand ticking down. Then I saw it. Not where it had been, but farther down behind a tall patch of weeds near the western lot. Hidden. Out of sight. Smoke. A low, dark column, rising too slowly. I ran. By the time I got there, the air was thick with burned plastic and rubber. The car was there, or what was left of it. Charred black, frame still smoking, windows gone, interior melted into slag and wire. No one inside.
No bodies.
No signs of anything, not even footprints. Just heat, and silence, and that acidic chemical smell of everything synthetic being erased. I stood there, paralyzed, as the last flickers of flame curled up around the edges of the seats. Had someone torched it deliberately? Had it caught fire from the engine? Where was she? Where was her mother? Where were the sirens? Where was anyone? I stayed there for over an hour. I didn't move when the heat died. Didn't call anyone. Didn't log anything. Eventually, I walked back to the shack and sat there, staring at the wall until dawn. When the day shift guy arrived, I told him I'd had a stomach bug. Needed to go home early. He didn't ask questions. I didn't go back to work. I told them I needed a break. Didn't say why. Didn't need to. They didn't ask. I sat in my house for days with the curtains drawn, the TV on mute, and the heater humming louder than my thoughts. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. That almost smile. The look that said, I know you. I barely ate. Barely slept. I kept waiting for something to make sense. For a knock on the door. A news report. A phone call. Anything. But nothing came. Just silence. And then the dream started. Not the normal kind. These were vivid, relentless. I'd be back at the fence, watching her walk away again. Or I'd open the door to the shack and she'd be sitting there, legs swinging, humming a tune I didn't recognize. Sometimes I'd see her burning, inside the car, not screaming, just staring at me, as if I was the one who left. The worst dream? She was inside my house, eating cereal at the kitchen table, looking up at me like nothing had happened. "Why didn't you try harder?" she asked. I woke up screaming, more than once. I started to believe she was still out there. I walked the old industrial quarter at night, hoping, listening, following shadows I used to ignore. I even started talking to people, strangers, workers, junkies, asking if they'd seen a girl and her mother in a busted old car. Most just shook their heads. One told me I looked haunted. I checked hospital logs, police bulletins, shelter boards. Nothing. Nothing. One night, I found myself back at the yard, standing by the fence where I first saw her. The shack light was off. The cameras weren't even pointed that way. No one stopped me. I whispered her name. Nothing answered except the wind. But I kept whispering. It was the night I tried to burn the drawing that something broke. I stood over the sink, lighter in hand. The paper caught fast, blackening at the edges. Then mid-flame, I saw the word for it melt, and I heard her voice, not in memory, in the room, clear, quiet, real. "Don't." I dropped the page, stomped the fire out, and wept. The next day, I was found wandering barefoot on the railway tracks, muttering about fences, about cameras that pointed the wrong way, about a daughter no one could prove existed. I don't remember much of it, just the hallway, white walls, locked doors, a nurse who spoke too gently, a doctor who never blinked. They called it a breakdown, said I'd been under stress, that I'd fixated, that it wasn't real. But I know what I saw, I know what I lost, and I know she was there, even if no one believes me. Local news: Ronners Tidende mother and daughter presumed dead after vehicle fire. Authorities continue to investigate the circumstances surrounding a burned-out vehicle discovered in an abandoned industrial lot north of Ronners. The car, a 1996 Volvo station wagon, was first reported by a passerby on the morning of December 29th. No bodies were found at the scene. Surveillance footage from the Storhøje toll bridge showed a woman and a girl matching descriptions crossing into the area just hours before the fire. Police say the car was reported stolen 2 weeks prior in Odense. The two individuals have not yet been identified, but investigators believe they may have been living out of the vehicle. Witnesses describe a woman in her late 30s and a girl around 10 to 12 years old. A police spokesperson stated, "There were signs they had been in the area for several days. While no foul play is currently suspected, the case remains open. Authorities ask that anyone with information come forward." The paper is creased from where I've read it 100 times. It isn't long. It doesn't give names. It doesn't mention me. Of course it doesn't. But I know what I'm looking at. The toll bridge timestamp, the description, the location. It's them. And no one believes me. I sit in a quiet room now. Padded walls. Unopenable windows. They call it a recovery wing. A safe space. Every week, a different man in a cardigan asks how I'm sleeping. If I'm still hearing things. I say no, because it's easier. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear her voice. Not a hallucination. Not a symptom. A memory. I keep the drawing folded in the lining of my coat. They haven't found it yet. I hope they never do. The last thing she ever said to me, I don't even know if it was real, but I remember the way she said it, the certainty in her voice. "You came back." And I did, but it wasn't enough, because now she's gone again. And this time I don't think she's coming back.
This is the end of the story. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Please remember to subscribe.